What's up, guys? I'm LAJ,
This is Young Peter here.
legendary sports organization, and the Dirty Mint. And today's a very interesting day. I mean, we're talking about mistakes, not people that were born that should have not been born. We're talking about drafts or
But more specifically, what Sus is trying to say is we're actually looking into what teams probably could have done differently, or
A
in
certain
any case,
thing.
a certain player that was traded. Because there's a ton we can talk about when you talk about mistakes.
trades.
We're gonna talk about mainly what the big franchise-changing decisions that were made.
that just changes the
That completely
dynamics.
that could have not only changed the landscape of the NBA. I mean, they did, but this could have honestly made things positive for the teams that did
Yeah.
the actual trading in itself. And we're gonna start off with what we both think is honestly the biggest fuck up. I'm sorry to say, but
No,
the
it
biggest
is.
fuck up
It is.
that Oklahoma City
Especially
did
for
in
the
trading.
returns.
Yeah, in James Harden to Houston, and what OKC got in return were 2 draft picks, a second rounder, Kevin Martin,
Jeremy Lamb.
and Jeremy Lamb.
One of the first rounders you said was Steven
It was
Adams.
actually Steven Adams.
Yeah, not bad, but at the same
Still,
time, James Harden.
But you're telling me that with that team that they had Serge Ibaka,
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden. Now, granted, we understand what these guys are now today, and obviously what they are as individuals. But you're telling me that you have those 4 on one team. Don't even think about today's Warriors. This would have been the team that you're talking about now.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about them now, but we're talking them in a negative light.
Because Durant was in 2007. Westbrook was in 2008, and then Harden in 2009. And
Imagine that.
these guys
That-
went to the finals
Like the
third
Thunder,
year.
whoever was in the Thunder scout,
Brilliant.
scouting
Yeah.
was really brilliant. 'Cause,
Arizona, Texas, and UCLA. So I don't know where Serge
The-
Ibaka came.
uh,
No, it's Spain. Spain.
Spain.
Yeah,
Okay.
he was in the Spanish national team. I remember that. But okay, so you think about it. The scouts went out there and they didn't go into UCLA, Duke, or now North Carolina. They went into Arizona. They went into Texas.
So they
these
saw
smaller
something
teams.
in these guys, and you're telling me like that's you're knocking out home run after home run after home run using the baseball analogy on getting the best returns for your draft pick.
And only okay, so let's go back to so the last pick was James Harden in 2009. Now, if you go into how long it took them to actually become contenders, because when Durant came in, they were still Seattle Supersonics.
Yes.
Then they went into Oklahoma, but they were still like 20 wins a year caliber. Then Westbrook comes in, they go up to 30. Then James Harden comes in, they go to
but
50.
they did it. They did all within the right process. They
Yeah.
build and develop, build and
Yeah,
develop, build and
definitely,
develop.
of course. But look at 2009, and then they go into the finals in 2012, and now you're talking about an Oklahoma City Thunder team went together with the depth and everything they have. Yes, James Harden was going to be expensive, but that's something you have to pay for. You should have paid for.
This is where the excuse of being a small market team.
Yeah.
I understand the reasoning behind it, but seeing where the NBA is now and where all the money is coming in from a lot of these luxury tax-paying teams, honestly, I feel like they could have afforded it.
Yeah, they don't have to go to New York. They don't have to go in LA. They don't have to be in Chicago. They don't have to be a big market. Look at Kevin Durant. He built his brand just by playing on the court and showing his worth. So yeah, of course. I mean,
So yeah, like
mistake.
we're both in agreement that was a mistake.
Biggest mistake.
Because what they got in return was basically Kevin Martin, who ended up leaving. Jeremy Lamb
was still there, but he just, I think, either got traded or he ended up. I think he's in New Orleans. I'm not too sure on him. But Steven Adams is the only one that stuck, and the other 2 picks. I mean,
one of their other first rounders was I believe his name was Gary.
Gary?
Was Gary something like that. Was eventually cut and really not got to see too much playing time. So I understand when people tell me that picks are really important, and believe me, on paper that seems like a good return. But they really should have just paid up and honestly kept this core together, because we'd be talking about them right now.
James Harden wouldn't have been 6th man of the year. He would have been MVP with the other MVP right now. 2 MVPs in the same team.
Three.
Three.
With those 3 MVP players, I mean, you're telling me that a potential free agent wouldn't take a pay cut to go with this team?
Yeah, these guys, we're not talking about the Warriors. We'd be talking about OKC. It's what could have been. So this player is still in the league, and he's not the player that he once was. We're talking about an ex MVP. We're talking about max player, hometown boy. He was one of the best players to look at.
Maybe one of the most exciting
Yeah.
guards have come out in quite
Athletic,
some time. So.
exciting. It was just like it was like stop what you're doing and watch this guy, and that's Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose being on that fourth quarter with 1 minute and 15 seconds left, leading by 12 points. 2012. We're talking about MVP caliber still. Derrick Rose. He was just coming off his MVP, and this was a shortened season. It was during the lockout. And for whatever reason, Tom Thibodeau had him out there, and either trying to prove a point against Philadelphia or whatever thought process was in his mind. But he goes up for a simple layup or pass and ends up tearing his ACL, taking him out. And ever since then, he was never the same.
That's one of those, again, what could have been. You're talking about, you're already up 12 with a minute left to go.
First round,
and this is Philadelphia, and this is playoff Philadelphia, but they didn't have that Tracy McGrady or Reggie Miller who can get you so many points within that 1 minute. We kind of felt at that time why this has made the list, honestly, because you're telling us that you're already up 12. Why would you keep your star player in the game? I mean, Tom made
the starters. They still had the starters. Luol Deng,
yeah, and then of course, but the most important player was out there, and he shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
And we watched that play, and we're looking at it like, why?
It was like a simple play. Like, it didn't even look like it would be something big. All he does is he hop skips, goes up, and then comes down, and he's out. That's it. There's nothing severe. No one chopped him. Nothing big.
There wasn't anything intentional. Nothing that someone did to him. It's just he just stayed out, and when he should have really been getting his rest, even beforehand.
Yeah, and that led to the decline. This is where now Derrick Rose is with the Cleveland Cavaliers instead of in Chicago as a supermax player.
It's just crazy to think that when we try to pinpoint when someone's rise and fall, we always look back to that first round, that 2012 first round matchup to Philly to see where things went wrong.
Yeah,
that's 5 years ago. 5 years ago.
And he's 26, 28. He's still young. Like, he's still young.
In NBA terms, he's still a young player, but who should be approaching his prime. And now we're looking at Derrick Rose, a minimum salary contract with the Cavaliers. You know, he did have a decent year in 2016-17 with the New York Knicks, but he wasn't that explosive. I mean, I honestly think when he goes up and he wants to do something exciting, something tells me he hesitates a little. Just because he doesn't want to have another injury. I mean, he had one last year.
Yeah, he had a bunch of injuries. I mean, from knee, it went to ankles, from ankles into back. And it's just like, damn, Derrick. Damn, Thibodeau.
This is where Tom gets that reputation that he's overworks his players. And we both hope that he doesn't pull this crap over in Minnesota.
Butler, Wiggins, and Karl-Anthony Towns. That would be sad. So the 90s was mostly about Michael Jordan, Hakeem Olajuwon, Patrick Ewing, and Reggie Miller, to name a few. Charles Barkley, another one.
Yeah, just to name a few.
But there's one team that made one of the biggest mistakes of the 90s, and that's the Orlando Magic.
I mean, you're telling me that you have this guy you drafted from LSU, and
number one pick,
Shaquille O'Neal, in those early years. Of course, he was still a raw prospect, but he was already like smashing backboards, and you're talking about dragging it to him.
Yeah,
he was the man of steel, and even at that young of an age, you're telling me that this guy was going to be the leader of a franchise one day.
Yeah, him and Penny Hardaway, because it was not just Shaq, but it was Shaq and Penny Hardaway, and Penny Hardaway at that time, I guess you could say, was the Kobe of the 90s. He was kind of dominant, and that would have been a great 1-2 punch.
I mean, and they had, like Orlando, they had their shooters with Nick Anderson and Scott Skiles. You're talking about a complete team that they had. And why does he get to LA?
I mean, all I remember was Shaq was, he saw somebody get like $150 million, and Shaq said, if he got $150 million, I want $150 million, or I want more. I'm worth a lot more. And the Orlando Magic hesitated. They took long. The conversations led nowhere. And then Jerry West comes over and, gives him a call and says, hey, what are you asking for? 150. Let me go back to Jerry. Let me go back to Mr. Buss and tell him the situation. So Jerry and Mr. Buss conversate, and they come up with a number, but they promise Shaq, not only are they going to have him as a marquee player, but they're gonna have him surrounded by great talent and promising him championships. And long
Because
behold,
of course, when even back then, when you hear the Lakers, you automatically think of championships, MVPs, legends.
Yeah.
Already then.
yeah, and that's what they were promising him. We're gonna promise you, we're gonna put your name on, on the rafters. We're gonna, you're gonna cement yourself in the championship. And the good thing about the Lakers of the '90s, that was before Kobe was drafted. They brought him in the year that he got drafted or traded for. And that year they had Nick Van Exel, Eddie Jones. They had good key pieces. So, there's Penny Hardaway in Orlando, good. But then there's the Lakers with role players and starters and like an established like team.
And then you're getting away from Jordan. So
Yeah.